Good morning, everyone, and welcome to part 1 of 3 of our urinary system lecture. In today's video, we're going to just introduce the urinary system in general, the major organs, and then we're going to start focusing on the gross anatomy of the kidney with vasculature. So let's get started. Now, your urinary system's main job is to basically filter your blood, kind of clean things out, and help regulate a lot of the different components of your blood as well as your pH. And to do this, it's going to use several different organs. The main powerhouse of your urinary system is going to be your two kidneys. Now, these are going to lie in what we call the retroperitoneal space. Um, the peritoneum, recall, is the layers of membranes that are going to surround the digestive organs and help anchor them into the abdominal cavity so they don't just like slump down. Your kidneys are behind that. They are outside of those membranes, about where your rib cage sort of ends in your back. And their job, as we will see, they have a bunch of these structures called nephrons that are going to basically filter your blood, pull things out that we don't need, keep stuff that we do need. Once the nephrons have done that, that urine at this point is then going to filter down from each kidney into the urinary bladder via two ureters. Once your bladder fills, and we'll talk about this in our very last part for this lecture, you're going to go through what's called the micturition reflex, where you are going to go urinate and remove that urine from the body. Urine will exit through the urethra. Now, this is where, one of the first hard parts of the urinary system is everything starts with U. Urinary bladder, urethra, ureter. So if you're one of those people that's going to get that mixed up because they all sound the same, I'm very guilty of that. We want to make sure we spend some extra time going through those words and ensuring we know what's going on. So as I mentioned, the urinary system's main jobs are to get rid of waste products and to regulate. So things that it's getting rid of are like extra like amino acids that we have, our breakdown of different metabolites, ammonia, urea, all those things that we don't need. It's going to get rid of excess water, excess hydrogen ions, or bicarbonate ions. Those are going to get eliminated in the urine. Now, what does this mean for regulation? One of the things that is so closely monitored in your body is your pH levels, so how acidic you are. And as we've talked about before, your blood needs to be anywhere between 7.35 and 7.45 pH. Outside of that, you're in a trouble zone. So what your kidneys do is they help maintain that pH. If you guys head on to physiology, you'll learn about all the intricacies of how your respiratory system and urinary system work together to balance your pH or help correct any errors that there might be, whether you become acidotic or alkalotic. Now, the other thing that the kidneys are constantly regulating is your fluid volume. So by regulating how much water is in your circulatory system, it has a direct effect on your blood volume. So it can pull excess fluid out, reducing blood volume, reducing blood pressure, or it cannot put a bunch of water into your urine, retain that fluid, increased blood pressure. So we actually use our kidneys as a way to help regulate blood pressure when it's too high or too low. And we also have hormones. We talked about these a while ago, but remember calcitriol, that is our active form of vitamin D, and then we also have erythropoietin, EPO, which is going to be stimulating red blood cell production. So those are also found here in the kidneys. So here is a view of the kidney. Now you know why kidney beans are named as such. Here is again a visual of that retroperitoneum that we talked about at the very beginning. This is where all of your digestive organs would be. This is a cross section, by the way. Here's your spinal column, your abdominal wall muscles, and then here's that kidney. So they lie outside of the peritoneum. Where these blood vessels come in and the ureter exits, that indentation is called a hilum. And surrounding your kidney is a layer of connective tissue that we call the capsule. And the capsule is really important because that's where we're going to have things like other pieces of connective tissue to connect it to that retroperitoneal space so they don't fall down, as well as fat to help protect the kidneys. That's all going to connect to this capsule. When we slice a kidney, and this is the main view you're always going to see of a kidney, is a frontal section. And we can see three distinct regions. The outer layer of your kidney and this sort of white or lighter colored material is called the cortex. This is your outer layer, and it runs in between the regions of the medulla here. So these little pyramids we'll talk about in a second, they are all part of the medulla. And the area just before we enter the ureter is called the renal pelvis. So cortex, medulla, pelvis. Those are the three regions. And within each region, we're going to have different structures that we want to take a look at. Now, the ones that I want to bring to your attention first are the easiest to identify, which are these triangular structures called renal pyramids. These are the structures found within the medulla. And in between each renal pyramid, we have cortex. And that renal cortex that's found between each pyramid is called a renal column. And a lobe of the kidney is considered one pyramid and the cortex on either side, so that half of a column on either side. Each lobe is sort of an area within the kidney. Now, as we look at these pyramids, you will notice, excuse me, at the tip here, it kind of sits in this cup-like structure. This cup-like structure is called a calyx. In this case, it's called a minor calyx, and it's going to collect the urine from that pyramid. And multiple minor calyces will then filter into a larger cup called the major calyx. So we go minor calyx, major calyx. Those are the collection areas as we flow into the renal pelvis to go out of the ureter. Now, the last thing I want to touch on in this video is the vasculature of the kidney. Remember, again, major thing we're doing here, regulating blood volume, blood pressure, pH, and removing metabolites. So your kidneys have to process a huge amount of your blood. In fact, 20 to 25% of your cardiac output, which is the amount of blood that exits the heart, goes to the kidneys. Now, there's a lot of vasculature here, as you will see on the next page. We are not getting into all of those nitty-gritty details. There's only a few things that I want you guys to recognize. First, the blood's going to come into the kidney through the renal artery. From there, it's going to branch into a bunch of different smaller and smaller and smaller vessels until we hit this area here. This yellow tube is your nephron. It's your functional unit of the kidney. That's going to be the focus of our next video. These small branches of arteries are going to become the afferent arteriole. So each nephron is going to have an afferent arteriole that's going to go to a bundle of capillaries called the glomerulus. This is where we're having filtration occur to go into this tubule. We then have an efferent arteriole that's going to take any blood that didn't get filtered back away from the nephron, and it's going to distribute and branch into either the vasa recta or paratubular capillaries. These are going to have physiological roles that we're not going to get into in our class, but suffice to say, the paratubular capillaries and vasa recta are continually moving either salts or water or other metabolites into and out of very specific areas of the nephron. You guys will learn more about that if you head into physiology. Once the blood goes through the vasa recta and paratubular capillaries, it's going to come back out through a series of very small veins that are going to get increasing in size until we hit the renal vein and then go back into the inferior vena cava to get back into the circulatory system. So what this looks like, again, we have our frontal section, and now I've overlaid the vasculature. everything here with an X, you are not responsible. That is something we'll learn about if I see you in anatomy. So let's run through the blood flow through the kidney together one more time. Blood's going to leave the heart, go through the aorta, and then enter the kidney through the renal artery. Through there, it's going to branch into these ever smaller and smaller and smaller blood vessels until we hit the nephron. There we go through the nephron circulation, afferent arterial, glomerulus to filter, efferent arterial, peritubular capillaries, vasa recta, and then we come back out through these blue vessels, the veins that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, until we completely exit at the renal vein and go back to the inferior vena cava. So again, anything with an X, not your responsibility for this class. Anything that's not an X, you do need to know. I will see you guys in our next video when we go through the nephron and how it actually makes pee. So I'll see you there. Bye.